And apologies for the little delay. It's been one of those days where all the technology is going all over the place. And so I wanted to just make sure that we had sound going both in and out so that Steve could actually hear and talk at the same time. Great luxury. Steve, welcome. It's been literally years that we've been working and thinking together about all sorts of topics. And it's a great honor to have you here tonight, because even though this is going to be one of those coaching sessions where we flip the coin, where you usually are the coach, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of mind space and time to think about your own career, your own thinking, just as a framing before we jump into that, so that those listening can actually understand why we're doing this. The intention of this session is to really just show behind the scenes of how a coaching session can go on this type of topic, and to show also how there is always a part of chaos and there's a part of order. The chaotic balance is something that's been talked about a lot in our sessions recently. And so I'm going to make a special effort to show behind the scenes of how the process is being structured, even though you might not see that on camera. And Steve and I might actually analyze that as well. That's part of metacognitive communication, the idea of stepping back, talking about talking. And as coaches, we probably can do that quite a lot. So Steve, thank you. Are you able to breathe now that all your technical problems have been solved?
The standard preparation for my calls, but yes, I'm good, thanks.
I was looking at your data dashboard that you did already 2 years ago, and I was thinking perhaps that's your subconscious trying to create a challenge level to make the flow level rise. As a coach, you just want that flow all the time. So anyway, great to have you.
Thank you.
For today, before we go into the check-in, I just wanted to frame the process and draw it for you so that you know it's going to get quite messy, because we're going to do two things. We're going to have a conversation about you, but we also, in a sort of presence in style, but we're also going to play with an AI called Jasper, which is still being developed. There's still a lot of beta features in it. I've tested it a lot on copywriting. I've never used it for a LinkedIn profile. And I was curious to see how it would perform. So it's kind of like humans versus AI tonight a little bit. I don't think that the AI stands a big chance with both of us, but let's see how the AI performs. We might not. So if you're listening to this expecting to see a tutorial on Jasper, this is not a tutorial. This is us testing the features with the idea of using conscious communication to write a LinkedIn profile for Steve. So we won't be very, very active in the chat because we're focusing on the conversation. But if you do send messages, I will see them. I might not respond immediately, but please do go ahead and ask your own questions to Steve if you have some burning questions or thoughts to share to Steve as we go through this. So Steve, for tonight, while I draw the process, I'm giving you a tiny heads up to think about the first check-in question, which was like, obviously, as a coach, you start from goals, you start from why, you start from intentions. So as I draw the process, you've got a few minutes to think about what's your current ask around this session. You know, we could do a million other topics, but there was obviously a burning need behind that. And as I just get the pen, here we go. Look, now you can see my table. It's going to be easier if I just hide. So hopefully you can read the text here. If I make a big black Sharpie, the process for tonight. The framing is what we're doing right now. And the checkout is what we're going to do at the end. And there's usually this sort of curve of the process where here what we do is we open up the thinking with lots of new things, bringing new content. I'm going to go through your LinkedIn profile with you. We've got some great videos of your Olympics and other hockey. And so we keep opening until we get to this sort of groan zone here, where literally people often, if they don't like chaos or creativity, which is not your case, start to groan internally. They get like, and then that gradually clarifies until we close and converge onto something useful for your LinkedIn. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. And to do that, we're going to start with a couple of checking questions that I've written based on your satellite scan data that you had 2 years ago, plus all sorts of things that I looked on your profile and sort of started jotting down some ideas. And this is where we might start using Jasper and testing it in the groan zone. And then here, what we'll probably do is sort of start jotting down ideas and write. And we might actually even write them in or just share them as a copy paste and see. So that's the idea of the process for today. Is that making sense?
Yep, perfect. Sounds good.
All right, so maybe we just jump into the first checking question, which is, Um, when you started, you've got two big jobs really. One being the hockey consulting coaching, that world there, and then you've got the bank. You've got the daily job in the office, and those two, both of them would legitimize being full time and be fully focused. But you're still having the two that you're juggling, and now you're interested in taking a bit more active role in LinkedIn on top of all of that. So I'm just wondering, like, what's your motivation here?
Well, to be honest, yeah, I mean, my primary job is within the bank. Yeah, so that's like my literally 90%, 100% of the time I'm kind of engaged in that. And then I'm in a very fortuitous situation where I've been able to leverage my hobby to begin with, and passion, which was always around hockey.
Yeah.
So, and thanks to the bank and basically them being very supportive of this, I'm able to basically try and balance the two. Obviously, with hockey, it's been an amazing journey, and one that started out a very long time ago, and I've managed to be part of some really great teams, some really well advanced elite sporting teams, and I've been around elite sports culture for a long time. And I keep getting asked by people, my colleagues, but also people in the hockey world, people in the business world, really should take advantage of the situation that you are in, because you have, insight into the business world, and, um, the process of building a team there, but you also
Mm.
have insight from the hockey world and elite sport culture, working with Olympic athletes and Olympic teams. And, there's an opportunity to try and bridge the two. And, being involved in UX, which is obviously centered around people and understanding people and things like this, it seemed like a nice harmony to, take advantage of that. And really just try and sort of give back some of the knowledge that I've picked up along my journey. So then it comes to my LinkedIn profile, which is very dated. It's not something that I generally promote myself on or anything like that. And yeah, as a consequence, it seemed like a good opportunity working with you, Estev, to have a look at this, see what we can do, see what we can come up with, and enjoy the process of using AI and Meta-Cognition to see what we can do in this session, basically. So that's a little bit of the story behind it.
I just put my sports shirt on for you, Steve. So I just so you notice. The focus is not necessarily. Let's not too heavily focus on the actual writing in LinkedIn. We might get something really interesting, but I think the focus really would be ideally around you getting a clarity of your posture in social media, in particular LinkedIn. I mean, there's a lot of social media channels. I'm not sure what your footprint is on other channels, but I'm assuming that your work digital footprint is mostly focused around LinkedIn and not other channels, and the others are more personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, and which makes total sense, because I mean, LinkedIn is the professional thing, and there's a lot you can do when you start using the pro version and seeing a bit more about analytics. But I did a quick snoop around of your profile, which is, by the way, why LinkedIn was created, so that people can be green and empathic with each other without having to ask the basic dumb same questions to each other. First of all, a couple of things stood out, Steve. One is that even though you're not active, you have a ratio of posting to liking, which is really, really aligned with conscious communication, which is a lot of green. In other words, likes. You have, I thought, ratio wise, I started doing a quick count, but in 1 in 14, so one post for 14 likes or something like that on average, or even 1 in 10 is great, because it means that you're not just there to sort of shout about yourself and be blue, which is like in green, blue, red communication, as you know, it's about talking about what belongs to you, whereas green is about focusing on others. So liking is a great way for you to build and open that network organically without even posting anything. So one could say that I did a video actually a few weeks ago for a CEO of a startup who was grappling with this concept of like, how do I use LinkedIn and without spending too much time? And, you know, the baseline of that was spending a lot of time just being connected. I just put the screenshot in the background here, but, you know, there are 3 different rhythms of social media. And I just, when I looked at yours, you're already doing the top one, which is having, like, you can't see if I just hide behind this a second, but the top rhythm, the drum beat of weekly. Actually, I could even make this bigger so you can see better. But yeah, you could see that the sort of the top drum beat, the green, 75% of the focus roughly, is really just like connecting, like, potentially share with a nice comment and praise, like, which is exactly what you're doing. And then the weekly posting is what people obsess about. Oh, I have to post. But that's really just beautifully crafted in to a bigger rhythm of more abundant likes, which you've already got. So one could say that even as you're using LinkedIn right now, if you were to just literally update your bio with a bit more of your recent things and clarifying what you're really doing there, what's your branding, you don't necessarily need to post much. Now, the good thing about posting is that it kind of gives you a walking the talk. You know, if you are the guy who's bridging the sports elite world with business, then talking about that is a congruent and aligned way of talking about what you do, and, you know, aligning the do and the talk in a social media sense. So that would be the obvious thing, is to then talk about your new clarity of brand position in LinkedIn. It does not mean you have to talk about everything. Some people get lost because they say, I can't put all myself in LinkedIn. You don't need to. It's enough to just have an angle that you're kind of productizing yourself, if you like, since we can talk
like
design.
the offering, it's
yeah,
kind of okay. Yep.
yeah.
Makes sense.
So in a way, couple of thoughts about your LinkedIn is like, what's your if I look at this now with you, could you just walk me through a couple of things, because you've got a huge amount of endorsements.
Right.
I was just curious about who's endorsing you. You've obviously made a good impression on a lot of people.
Okay.
Look at that. I mean, if you look at other people's profiles, not everybody has that many endorsements.
Just to be completely honest, I didn't know I had.
Well, enjoy. You see, that's the joys of actually looking at yourself in the mirror on a LinkedIn profile. Look, it keeps going on and on and on. It's going on.
Oh.
There you go. Helpful approach.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people who value your skill set. And what I was curious about is, like, what do you think people, maybe you don't even know that yourself, but what do you think people would want to hear from you? Because, I mean, these are all areas where people see you in as an expert and competent. It doesn't mean you have to talk about all of them. I mean, you could be user-centered and holistic in your design approach, and being, you know, from your Loughborough background in design and research, you could talk about that, but you don't have to, even if it's in your LinkedIn profile. So do you have any sense of what people have been asking you to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, usually if you look through that, because I like in my profile, there's a little bit of the hockey, and then there's a little bit more so around the UX probably. And I think what you probably don't necessarily see as endorsements is that is the bridging of those two worlds in terms of team culture, and, you know, building a high performing team, or a high performance team, and how you take the learnings from elite athletes and who are full time working together on one single goal, which is to win, and how you take that mentality and approach and then apply that into business, where you might have multiple goals. So I think it's that sort of space that is probably, if you go through my endorsements, it's probably not really something that is there yet.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
It's something that I'm conscious of and have been doing in practice in the bank, but also, that's the bit I think people are starting to ask me questions about.
How do they work together, or are they? Is there a particular aspect that people have been curious? And I'm deliberately asking you about what others, because the temptation with LinkedIn is to go like, okay, that's me. I want to talk about this, which is very important part of it as well. But if you can align that with what you want to talk about, with what people are actually really interested in hearing, you're going to get something that fits really nicely into your online branding.
So I think with that, then it's about the normally in these spaces, like you can have elite athletes, elite coaches come into organizations and talk about the journey. How did they do it? What were the key stepping stones? What were the key learnings? And having witnessed this through numerous Olympic cycles with different coaches, you kind of get a feel for some of that. But so you can bring that aspect of what is the journey? What's it been like? What did you learn in the sporting world? But then I think what's interesting and a little bit different is that I've actually with my business hat on been trying to apply that learning into the team culture and the team that I run and other teams that I've been involved in, and apply that into a business setting. So rather than it just be right, what was the journey, and and people take their takeaways from that, I think that element of, well, here was the journey and here's how I have actually applied it in the real world in business. And these are the many things that haven't worked because you learn by trying. That's a little the slight difference that I'm interested in, giving back and sort of sharing, really.
So the if I look at the profile now, it's a lot to do with. I have 20 years experience user UX. First paragraph. Second paragraph is about project. The actual expertise. Third paragraph is design consultancy. So skills that you're talking about. And then the last one, works as advisory consultant, and there's there in that particular level, there's no mention of the elite. So basically, that's an obvious build. But let's get to that in a second when we open up a little bit more about that elite sports, because it's kind of exciting to hear. I'm going to invite you to talk a bit about what's going on behind me, because and in fact I will even hide. I'm not going to put the sounds so that you can just talk about whatever is going on. But that was one of the videos you shared with me about the hockey. So which one was this?
This is the Euro Hockey Championship, I think, in 2019, 2021, 2019, I think. But essentially, this was we were world champions at this point. We'd just come back and we got silver at Rio, which was a big disappointment for the team. They really they had a great opportunity to win gold, but sometimes you got to play a final to and lose a final to know how much it takes to win one. So, and this tournament was was actually in Belgium. And it was the first time we'd really gone into a tournament on home soil as the favourites to win it. And there was a huge amount of hype. The hockey in Belgium is huge, a massive amount of pressure on the players to deliver. And it was just an amazing tournament. And actually within that tournament in the semi-final, we played Germany. And it's probably one of the most exciting, intense matches I've ever been involved in. And many people say it's one of the best games that they've ever seen. It had everything. We were losing 2-0. We then came back. There was drama. It was just an emotional roller coaster to be part of, but also a real privilege to be part of such an amazing match. Basically, it's kind of like one of the pinnacles when doesn't matter whether it's a final or semi-final, when you're involved in that kind of match, it's just amazing. Basically, and the end game was that we won, and we were right against the ropes in that semi-final. We really didn't think we were going to necessarily get over the line, and the guys just went to another level. I think with the crowd behind them, the passion, the desire, knowing how to win from previous tournaments. Yeah, they just came in and delivered. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. And then it got followed with this one, which was obviously the Tokyo Olympics. Again, walking into that with being the favourites, with probably Australia being the second team at that time, but super, super close. And again, yeah, it's about performing under pressure. It's about setting the team in the right way to bring all of that effort, all of that journey, which at that point was, you could say, probably was a 10, 12-year investment on the team and how they have developed and evolved their
10,
culture.
12 years. Steve, how many corporate players even stay more than 2 years in their job?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and an interesting topic of discussion probably in one of our other conversations. But yeah, I mean, the Great Britain women, when they won gold at Rio, that was a 3 Olympic cycles, 12-year project essentially.
Yeah,
and with Belgium, it's not far off, to be honest. A very similar cycle in what you build. And this is Shane McLeod, the guy there who's the head coach of this, who, yeah, phenomenal leader. And yeah, I've learned a huge amount off of that guy as well. So, but yeah, great times.
So Tokyo gold. Now, see, there's one of the gold things that you can cross pollinate from the elite sports to the corporate world is a massive delta difference in timelines and commitment timelines and dedication timelines, because it's not the same running a 10-year goal than a 2-month KPI, right?
No, exactly.
So a few things, sort of obvious bridges here. I'm going to put another one in the background now, which what is this one? This was the Netherlands.
This was the World Cup. So this was the first major tournament that Belgium had ever won. So in India, 10,000 people watching. Super tense final. Went to penalties at the end, known as shootouts, but yeah, penalties the most. And yeah, it was the first time that the guys had ever won a major tournament. And I can't remember exactly how many finals we'd been in before that, and the disappointments, and having to pick the guys up after disappointment is always tough. But I think you also have to learn from those disappointments to be able to deliver on this stage. The whole thing has to work. There's no, if an individual isn't, in the zone with everybody else, you just can't execute it. So yeah, and that's those are the margins. They talk about the 1% being the difference in all sports, and sport, where overall, including staff, you're looking at around 30 people. How do you bring all of those people onto the same page, after the same goal, with very different personalities? Yeah, that's all part of the fun of it, I think.
So the little incremental improvements that you can do on the team level that seem like small and insignificant, they then obviously show really well and clearly when you have a win. And again, in the business world, that's something that can benefit a lot. So there's a lot of bridges, as you say, going from elite sports to corporate. What about the other way around? What have you cross-pollinated from corporate to elite sports?
I think probably the speed of execution. So, I mean, in business, there's not much time to necessarily think and really spend time about thinking about a whole program and building towards an Olympics. So an Olympics is once every 4 years. The Europeans is every 2 years. These are the things that you are building towards. World Cup every 4 years. So, in business, it's different, where we have projects that can be delivered in anything from 2 weeks up to a couple of months, long term as well. So it could be over a year, or a program of work over a couple of years. But the business side of thing, I think, really makes you focus in on probably more of the micro parts of that journey. So yes, it's a 4-year cycle, but there are lots of steps. And then you also have obviously some more off stuff, is all that team culture. And the on-pitch stuff is the delivery and execution athletes who are exceptional at what they do. And when you pressures, involved, you have doctors. This is all part of the machine that then delivers these moments at the end of the day. So
we're having a sound slight breakage, Steve. I don't know if you're on a broadband or if you're on your phone hotspot, but the internet connection was better just earlier. So if there's any switch that you've done in the network since we started, the earlier setting was probably good.
I haven't done anything.
Okay, but let's see how it goes. Now it's working fine. Is
it better? I've just switched off another Wi-Fi device, so maybe that's a bit better.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of it's a two-way thing. It's not just like elite sports helping corporate, but there's also a two-way, information learning process.
I think it's more from sport to business that business is really interested in, because obviously culture, and especially in this day and age, it's a really important thing. And I think future employees employees, and when they're looking for jobs and things, it's a bigger market now. They're not just interested in the role. It's like, oh well, what's the culture, what's the well-being support? The package has become bigger and it's more important, and they're more competitive in terms of companies employing really good talent. So they're interested in that for sure. That's what I've seen as a progression in my time.
So if we take the focus more like what can the elite world bring to the corporate world, then we'd be wise to sort of really play up the whole elite sports in LinkedIn, as you were asking about in the check-in. So yeah, okay. What about the? I think I was looking at your data back to you probably can't remember it, but I'll just open it up here. I had a copy of your dashboard, and I'm not going to go through the whole detail of it, but there was a couple of things that I picked out. One of them was the green, blue, red that you remember, like using green at certain times, blue at others. So that's been integrated. But there was, I was just wondering about the chaotic balance, meaning where you bring more structure. Okay, so you're very structured because you have to be to plan ahead, to have those two teams running and doing coaching on one side and running a team on the other. So you naturally have a tendency for being really organized, which shows as well. But the places where you needed more structure, if you remember, were three. They were like, bring in more structure. If you had chaos, if you do feel waste of time, the three touch points that had the biggest chaos potentially were online meetings, rules and templates, and learning structure, how you structure your own learning. And it doesn't matter. I mean, there's anything to fix there, but those are interesting, food for thought for this conversation, because they essentially mean that since we now bring in structure into the LinkedIn, the question might be, how might we bring LinkedIn structure and learning structure together so that you have with one stone, two birds, economize your effort and tackle two things with one effort. So I was just wondering, how does learning and LinkedIn fit in your brain? Because most people see LinkedIn as an advertising channel for their personal brand. But nobody says that should be. I mean, I personally prefer to see LinkedIn as a laboratory. I see it as a social lab, and I post often questions, quizzes, or investigations. And I take a more inquisitive approach to LinkedIn than a posting approach. It's just everybody has a different way of using it, and it's up to you really the way you think about using it. It doesn't have to be this like, hello, this is me, I'm great. Hello, this is me, I'm great, like a lot of people do.
Yes, that's not my style either. So yeah, I think, I mean, in that sort of chaotic space at the moment, it's about what are the key aspects of what I have experienced in the elite world to the business world, and what are the things that are of interest to other. And maybe the learning there is, if we're using it as the way that you use it, it could be, look, this is me. This is a little bit of what I've done, but I'm interested to hear what you guys are, what the challenges are at the moment. Because the world's moving super fast at the moment, yeah, and like team culture with people coming back to work and now in hybrid models, and teams are, having to work in very different ways. And maybe it could be, I need to almost, do some research as to what our organizations and businesses struggling with, to then be able to adapt and then say, okay, well, actually, if we brought this element, this could then be interesting to share with you, so kind of a bit more of a tailored solution, but based on the needs and requirements of businesses, rather than me saying, right, this is me, I can just tell you that's what you need. Maybe but I don't know if LinkedIn responds in that way. I could
back to the goal of why you're using it. I mean, is essentially your goal of just updating your profile, feeling that you're just aligned with your present reality, or is their goal to get more followers, or is their goal to get people to come and reach out to you for actual coaching and advisory and consulting? What is the sort of current idea? I've got a comment in the chat, by the way. As a reader, I would love to hear stories, even mess ups. And I'm remembering one story you told me off record that has had learnings or insights in the other bubble. And I think that's thank you for the comment, Daniel. That's a really relevant question because you could talk about hockey on the surface level of, okay, we won, all the media trackable content, but the behind the scenes stories, like the one in India when the hotel, and stories of how that helped cross pollinate. Like, once upon a time, this terrible or awesome difficult thing happened with the juicy storytelling, and this is what I took out of it to the business world.
Yeah, so maybe then in that context, it's about, because I'm not, people who know me, I'm not a self promoter. I'm very much kind of the guy behind the curtain, but I'm always there to try and support and help, especially if it's like tailored. So I don't really want to be, just rolling out a product and go, right, here's a presentation. I'm just gonna bang, 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 just walk around all these businesses doing this presentation. I don't get anything out of that, because I just feel like I'm leveraging what my experience for my own gain. And actually, what I'm more interested in is trying to support others and, actually make a difference in some businesses by actually really trying to understand what the problems are and then tailoring my experiences through that. And I think the stories is actually quite a nice one. So maybe it's actually giving some little nuggets of information or teasers around, have you got a problem with this, or or what is your current problem, and how might I be able to help? And here are some examples of some things that could be of interest, rather than go with that sort of standard, look at me, it's kind of approach.
I mean, you would have every reason legitimately to post all sorts of really impressive stuff. Like, some people are posting really basic, oh, look at me, I'm in front of the office and I'm happy. Fine, great, wonderful, very authentic. But you have stuff that's relatively out of the box that could make you stand out. So it's not like you're missing. I mean, hello, I've just been gold Olympic. Yeah, wow. Okay, so but the behind the scenes, as the comment from Anna was interesting, because first of all, storytelling, as you know, brings things to memorability and tangibility. So like, when you're storytelling, it's not like the words being used are slightly different, and you might start to formulate it with a much more down to earth, like, this is what happened. And then you take those two sentences as a conclusion, where this therefore means, the academic bit, where everybody usually starts with the academic bit and goes, this is, and then I'm going to give the example. That's really kills the story. So in a sense, if you started thinking of the storytelling structure, it would mean that when you do any form of elite sport coaching or activity, you would have this internal research kind of like habit that would say, what happened? What was the notable thing this time that happened? Like it could be a big match that I could write a short, LinkedIn less than 200 word post with a simple action recommendation for aimed towards leaders of teams in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk corporate language, but the storytelling comes from elite.
Yeah.
That could be one angle of sort of, then you're really congruent with what you're trying to do and who you are on both hats.
And I think also it's a little bit of a trial, hey? I mean, people keep saying, "Oh, look, yeah, you should be doing this and doing that," but I'm also a little bit just interested to, do a bit of fishing and see what works, what doesn't work, and if there's actually interest in this space. So I think I'm also kind of, it'd be quite interesting to try a couple of different approaches, which I know you do a lot of, hey?
Well, as a design experimenter, tester, researcher, I wouldn't expect anything less, Steve, than doing at least 3 mock-ups, MVPs of your LinkedIn profile, test them and get the numbers and see. But the other question, Steve, is what do you enjoy doing? Because I mean, you're busy enough as it is. So creating yourself a LinkedIn obligation of doing a particular format just because you feel you have to is not necessarily to your benefit, unless it also brings you a personal reward. So that's why I'm fishing around the ideas of what you needed in the scan. A couple of things that were there. What the other was, you needed better quantity of feedback. So obviously within your work corporate environment, if anybody in the work environment is watching this, they make no quantity of feedback to Steve. But what could we could formulate this as a brainstorm question. How might we use LinkedIn in a way that generates you feedback, quantity of feedback, better quantity of feedback, maybe also quality, and hard to get in LinkedIn, but quantity of feedback, and bring in structure to your learning. And it doesn't have to be a story of something that happened. That's just one obvious example, but that could be the brainstorm that we sort of grapple with for a short while. How might we combine feedback and learning with your use of LinkedIn in a way that would be personally rewarding, that you would feel basically interested and motivated to do, that you wouldn't feel it's a chore?
I think one of the main drivers with me generally is actually just helping people and supporting others. So I'm always in that sort of space. That's just me, I think. And I think, if I had some storytelling and was able to put some questions out there, and then actually, like the comment that someone just posted saying, "Hey, yeah, actually having some stories and behind the scenes examples of this sort of stuff, having that engagement, then is the feedback, which then makes me go, right, okay, yeah, I can do this, and I have something to give in that space. If I haven't, I'll put my hands up and say, yeah, it's not something I can support on." But it's going a little bit deeper than just saying, "Hey, look, I can be a speaker in an organization or come in and speak for you about the journey of elite sport and how it fits with business." It'd be better to sort of really get into that engagement of, okay, what are you trying to do? What are you faced with? And then it flows from there. So it's again more out of the box than off the shelf.
So in a way, it keeps gravitating back to the idea of you offering your service through LinkedIn. Now, obviously, that's quite different than being present in LinkedIn, because offering a service, I mean, a lot of coaches basically would say exactly that. Like, I want to be offering my services. So it's basically a call to action to buy or to buy into that expertise that you have offering there. That might be quite challenging, because there's so much noise in that front of people saying, look at me, I'm great, I have coaching to offer, even though that's not your fundamental intention to boost your ego, that your intention is to be kind and helpful. There's a lot of that sort of noise out there. So what often people do is that they offer something, freebies on their public domain talking about something that everybody goes, oh yeah, aha, I get that. And then that's like a symptom for them to want to call you later on a private channel, direct message, and say, actually, that was, the last 3 posts that you made were so spot on that I wanted to have a chat with you about our team. We're struggling with them. And that will come the more you're specific about what you talk about. Like, you could talk about literally any aspect of team, collective intelligence, flow. You could talk about conflict transformation into trust. That's a strong point of yours from your history, like dealing with intense conflict and turning it into trust. Lencioni's trust building models. You could focus even more narrowly on high performance and pressure and tension. You could take an angle and start to be really razor sharp on that, so that people recognize, that is where I need to talk to Steve, because I have a clear idea that that's what Steve is really good. And the obvious one is stages of team.
Yeah.
Like if I had to interview somebody right now in my network about who's the most practical, empirical expert on building high performing teams quickly and dealing with all the practical level stuff, I would call you. And maybe having something that not just me, because I know you personally, but somebody on LinkedIn would do the same.
Yeah, but I think that relates to the understanding the current problem space of organizations and businesses, of what they're trying to do, which goes back to your line when we were first talking earlier about trying to gauge where the problem space is, so that then using your words, then become razor sharp in a particular area. And that's the bit that's the challenge, I guess. And that's where I think with LinkedIn, maybe leveraging some, framing it as questions with then examples in behind it, could be a way to sort of see which ones are generally picked up on more. Maybe, I don't know.
It sounds like there's perhaps a hesitancy about just taking a stand without having the other feedback loop of what do people want. People want. You'll see it also quite literally on the number of likes and shares. There was another question actually from Anil that was, I think, really pertinent here. How much does your team or bigger work colleague network know of these sports methods, elite sport methods that you use in the corporate world?
They will have, like my direct team will have experienced it. Whether they know that that's actually directly from the sports world is another question.
That's the thing, you see, because it's like I do this with our internal team on conscious communication. That I'll be using a technique like an accusation audit, and we're going to have a little laugh and say like, okay, I'm about to do an accusation audit. Are you ready? And then boom, I say my accusation audit, and that is something that kind of brings a bit of playfulness into, and tangibility as well. So I think where Anna was heading with this could be that, just bringing what is obvious to you to the forefront.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
So, and there's probably plenty of those things that are invisible to them that you are going like, yeah, duh, obviously. So that could be actually another angle, is to think, maybe actually the feedback loop should come from your team. So rather than trying to get, because LinkedIn, just like a lot of social media, is terribly difficult to get real quality feedback. You can go out there and be super vulnerable, cry on camera, talk out there and go like, empty your heart about everything, and you get like 10 likes and then a couple of shares and people go, yeah. And so it doesn't necessarily give you that richness of feedback loop that you can get from a colleague in a corridor conversation over a coffee. So you might want to like look at, okay, I want to get the real feedback, the quality from my corporate colleagues, and systematically ask them the same 3 questions. What did you think was coming in our work from the sports world? What would you like to find out more about? And what did you like in my post? Because I'm trying to make it more useful for you.
Yeah, that would be very interesting, especially asking the question, what do you think came from business and what do you think came from sport?
See what happens. Yeah. So, and the other thing is that then as Anu has pointed out in the chat, is that it could become an internal channel to others in the bank.
Yeah.
It's a bit like an intranet, actually. It's sort of LinkedIn then becomes an intranet for people working in the corporate environment of license to talk about more than you would on a traditional business channel, because you're openly talking about cross-pollination in that channel. It's like, if you want to find out about the meta level, the cross-pollination, that's LinkedIn. If you want to hear just the functional, get your project done on time things, it's on the other channels.
Yep. Nice.
So kind of like playing with that. So let's move on to another angle here. We've looked at your videos, we've looked at LinkedIn. There was an article in the internal, and that's actually really a great segue to. I'm going to share the screen back again here. A great segue to what Anu's comment was. Is this is an article from the bank actually, that was written, I believe, just after the Tokyo Olympics, right? And we all know, I mean, in a way, that to me is your new LinkedIn profile. If you take it and just like, maybe we should take this as a starting point and think about building that into what you have. We all know the importance of organization, dedication, and hard work, but one man takes this to the next level, Olympic gold level, in fact. Discover an inspiring story of making a dream a reality. Meet Steve Bayer, our Credit Suisse Olympian who won gold at the recent games in Tokyo. Stephen, who's head of UX, user experience with global marketing, is also the goalkeeping and assistant coach of Belgium field hockey team. And it goes on to sort of to frame who you are in the hockey world. So this is like literally doing what you're trying to do, which is talking to the corporate reader about your elite sports.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really nice little piece of text that, thank you whoever wrote it. And yeah, that's something that we can use.
This is on the careers site for Credit Suisse, for like one of the employee stories, so to speak. So yeah,
forward planning and strategic thinking, copy. I'm doing a bit of, I've got a copy paste thing that I'm just grabbing a few text here. And finely tuned balancing act.
Well, that's very true. It is a finely tuned, but which sometimes doesn't balance.
Juggling. And then what's next for Stephen? Now he gets well-deserved rest from coaching, but not from other things. Still being a dad, still doing the other job.
Yes, exactly.
And then congratulations, yeah. So and his current and future successes together, yeah. So you've got something there. I think the first paragraph is really nice as well. I'll copy that, and I'll exit this a second. So I was also reflecting on your sort of topic of authority. We talked about when we did the dashboard last, the idea of green, blue, or red authority. The green authority, the authority that's given to you by others because they trust you and respect your expertise. The blue authority is essentially your LinkedIn profile that says how wonderful and awesome you are. And then the red authority is what you have authority because of action. So you just jump in and do. So you stand up and shout or talk or do, lead.
Yep.
And that's the red authority. Has anything shifted in your internal perception of authority that we should be building into this? Because LinkedIn is really about authority, being an authority.
Oh, that's a good question.
And while you're thinking, just commenting what we're doing right now for those who are listening in. Right now, we're doing this kind of presencing. So I'm not giving too much guidance to the conversation. I'm just re-expressing and sort of letting Steve go into whatever direction the thinking takes us until we get to a point where we're going to start to crystallize it. But that's a gentle form of presencing that we're using right now.
I guess the green space and the green authority is something that has evolved because of the success in the in the sporting world. So people recognizing, if I'm interpreting that correctly and remember my green, blue, red stuff. I think that has probably progressed more, and is probably something in that isn't necessarily as present in my profiles and online perception. And I would probably say, yes, consequently, the blue authority on LinkedIn is just, that needs sorting out. And then the red authority of doing and having action, I think I've probably evolved in that. It's always something that I personally, I know I have to become. It's always a work on that space. But the doing and the actions and that sort of red space for me is has certainly progressed from if I think back 10 years ago to where I am now. I feel much more in a space where I'm like, yeah, this is what we should do. And it's not just on a hunch or a whim. Generally people, as they move through their career, I would imagine, become stronger in that space as they progress, because you've been there, you've done it, you've tried it, what works, what doesn't work. And yeah, that's one of the things.
Yeah.
I was just going to think, like, an example of that is how you operate and manage a team in terms of like the cyclical rhythms of effort and workload. Because I've tried, like in sport, you have a very different you have different models for getting the guys or the women ready for a big tournament, and you can't have them operating at 100% capacity, like physical capacity, throughout a whole year. I mean,
it's just not realistic.
It's not possible. When you actually think about that in a work environment, especially through COVID and where we are now and all of that, people have been really struggling in that space because you have more meetings, more online meetings, etc. And even before COVID, like, I was starting to play in that space of, okay, like, clearly we can't have everyone operating at 90% just all the way through. It doesn't work like that. So then you look at moments of heavy workload versus light workload. So you have a bit more of a rhythm. And then when you have that, like, set, actually, I think teams operate much better because they know that they can push for the next month, knowing that the following month they get a bit of time to recover.
Which is very rare in business, by the way, because that's probably one of those hidden, what you're taking from hockey, because I don't really know that many corporate people that I'm coaching who are saying to me, like, oh, I'm looking forward to next month because I know I'm going to get a slump in my work so I can rest a little bit. I don't hear that. I hear I'm now stressed, and I'm stressed about being stressed in the future. And I was stressed last month, and I can't see the end of the stress coming or going.
That depends on the rhythm of the business. So, you also find that different companies, like global companies versus, just startup space, or, something that's a little bit not on that scale, they have different rhythms, as do people. Like, we all have different rhythms, and people have different capacities, and it's kind of understanding your team and your team members to be able to then go, right, I know this person can push a little bit more and handle maybe more different work streams or different projects. This one is actually much better at just being focused on it. And I think that, that evolution has been quite interesting, to be honest. And that really is one of the things that I would say is a real learning coming across from the elite sport world into business.
I'm actually typing a bit in the Jasper behind here. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I typed a few things that we were talking about to see what comes out. I have no idea how good this is going to be. It's defaulting to American English.
Oh yes, so wonderful.
So just be warned.
Last time you did this, though, was very impressive in the little demo that we did before. I was like, wow. Like, we don't even need to do the call,
Should we
This is
choose?
fine.
We can choose a tone of voice. We can be witty, or we can be Tony Robbins. Depends on what you want to do. But this is what came out with me writing. Basically, what I did is I copy pasted in here personal information, which were snippets from your article. I didn't even touch your LinkedIn profile, but we could do another round with your LinkedIn profile. I took tone of voice witty, but we could do, we could take Oprah Winfrey. We can take what do they have at the moment in the you can take boss mode. You can take funny, casual, excited, professional, sarcastic, feminine, masculine, bold, dramatic, grumpy, secretive.
Right.
So, if you want to be informative, and then there's a few personalities: Tony Stark, Oprah, Tony Robbins, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Optimus Prime. So,
Optimus Prime, brilliant.
You're gonna try Optimus Prime.
So we go.
Now you've said it. Now let's just go back and do. I'll just do a copy paste of this, just so we don't lose it. But I'm gonna go. Whoops. Here we go. Optimus Prime, and in first person. Usually LinkedIn is quite nice in first person because you get a bit more authenticity.
Okay.
Here we go. Let's see what's come out. New outputs. I'm an Olympic gold medalist. I know the importance of organization, dedication, and hard work, but one thing that sets me apart is my finely tuned balancing act. I plan each step of my journey meticulously and take great care to balance work with rest. It's this careful attention to detail that has helped me achieve success at the highest level.
Can you imagine Optimus Prime saying that? I think so.
All right, copy. There we go. That's another snippet. Story style. When I was just a little boy, I dreamed of being an Olympic gold medalist. And you know what? I achieved that dream. It took a lot of hard work, dedication, organization, but it was all worth it in the end. I'm the best juggler you'll ever meet. Finely tuned, balancing act, forward planning, and strategic thinking, always in balance with the rhythm of work and rest.
It all sounds a lot better than what I have at the moment.
Copy that as well. Okay, let's go back now and take the actual snippet of your bio. We have 800 characters here. Let's see how much we can do in paragraphs. But really what we could do is to go into the base profile you have and take one of them that best represents your corporate side.
Yep.
Let's see if we take the first two paragraphs, see what happens.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
And now, do you want to keep Optimus Prime or do you want to just go witty?
I like the behind the scenes thinking of my profile is built based on Optimus Prime.
That's where it's interesting to not take it too seriously, because ultimately, these things can be taken. Somebody can spend hours on their LinkedIn profile, sort of worrying about all this. Ultimately, it's really just about, can you say this shortly, tangibly, and in your own what feels right to you. So when you're reading these snippets, what I suggest you do is just think what feels congruent to me, rather than trying to make it sound too awesome. Let's say I'm going to try witty. Witty is quite nice, and let's see what happens. Okay, they got your name wrong. I'm Jane. But anyway, so that's easy enough. I'm Steve. I've been working in user-centered design for over 20 years. I've consulted on projects in the UK and across Europe with a focus on psychological, social, and cultural factors in user-centered design. My aim is to ensure the end user is provided with simple, usable, safe, and valued design. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. I think basically what I'm getting out of this AI for the moment is that it just gives you a license to get rid of a writer's block.
Yeah.
Because you can sort of sit there and try. You could sort of, basically what you can do is you write random bullet points of text in a badly stringed sentence, throw it in and see what it generates, and start building your text from there. I think that's, And it does need to be, I think, partly a personal process, because you're going to sense what's good or bad, and writing together might be really tricky. But
Mm-hmm.
what I'm getting here is that obviously this is not going to write it for you, but you can get, and maybe what we should focus on now is the kind of key messages, the bullet points that
Yep.
you could use and formulate.
No,
So
agreed.
I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to type a few keywords here. The first thing we said is elite sports.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. The other thing we talked about is balancing the rhythm of work and rest for higher performance.
Mm-hmm. Yep, good.
The other that we noted earlier at the beginning is cross-pollination,
Mm-hmm.
from hockey. I think we can say not just elite sports,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
elite hockey. Elite hockey. Did I spell it wrong? Yeah, no, it's fine. Hockey coaching and corporate banking.
Mm-hmm.
From elite to corporate banking. So that could give us another sentence. Banking leadership,
Mm-hmm.
or management, maybe leadership. And then the other thing you had was
I think we need something in
team.
there about team culture. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So team culture building,
Mm-hmm.
transforming tensions and conflict, conflicts, and drama. Because it's quite factually what you're doing is that you're quite often managing drama, conflict, and drama into trust
Mm-hmm.
and team dynamics and teamwork. So that's kind of the gist of it. What do you want to do with your LinkedIn has been talked about a little bit. Is like you want to be there to give back. You want to serve other people. You want to help other leaders benefit from what you've done. So learning from sports to help leaders thrive, or something, I don't know, thrive, maybe
Evolve.
to help. Yeah.
Evolve, maybe.
Oh, there we go. So we can just try that. See, this is where wordsmithing could be really long if we take it far, but let's just play with that and see what comes out. Yeah, first one there, really short, right? I'm an elite sports coach. I help teams and leaders find balance in their lives so they can achieve higher performance.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a background of elite hockey coaching where I learned how to build team culture and transform tensions into trust and teamwork. This experience has helped me evolve as a leader and learn from sports to help leaders everywhere evolve.
Yeah. You can
So
see how that then gives you a base where you could just do a little bit of wordsmithing on it, and then it becomes something that, you know, I'm feel comfortable with. That's kind of the way that I would express myself, if you see what I mean. We'll show you.
it doesn't feel too AI-like, does it? I think it's quite. I think I'd have to say I'm relatively impressed. Of course, you know, we read down a bit. I do want to read the Tony Robbins version. Just humor me a second. Is it an I or is it a Y? It's a Y, isn't it? Tony Robbins. Let's just give you a little Tony Robbins spin and see.
That's the same as me with Optimus Prime, you see.
Okay, here we go. I'm an elite sports coach. I work with teams. I'm not going to do the American accent. I work with teams and leaders to help them balance the rhythm of work and rest for high performance. I also cross-pollinate from elite hockey coaching to corporate banking leadership. I've had a lot of success in building team culture and transforming tensions, conflict, and drama into trust and teamwork. I've learned a lot from sports that has helped me evolve as a leader.
Wow.
Very simple. Boom.
Yeah.
That's me. Take me as I am.
Yeah.
And I'll copy that too.
Okay.
So this, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually do something that normally I don't do in a stream, which is to post it in the chat so that you can actually see it, and others in the chat scene. Anu's loving this. She said, here we go, in the chat. I'm going to post it in the chat for everybody to see. Any feedback on that? There we go. And actually, I'm going to show it so that we can see it on the main screen as well. Here we go. I just show chat overlay. There we go. You can see that probably, Steve.
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah. You can even copy paste it yourself and drop it down in your own thing. So, like, updating the chronological part of your LinkedIn with like what you've done, the sort of timeline of this event, that Olympic medal.
Yeah.
That's basically something that can be really factual and blue and quite matter of fact. I did, this happened. But I think where we've got something now is, I think there's a certain clarity around bringing the elite world as a source of inspiration for the corporate world, and making that a platform for you to talk internally to the people you work with in the bank and in other corporate settings. So it's like a platform for you to share the learnings from one direction to the other.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps what's missing here in the profile bio is, people often say in Twitter, follow me for this. So you could take that kind of approach, like, follow me for that. Like, I'd like to see a lot of people follow you without it necessarily being first contact connection where you've worked with them or endorsed them or they've endorsed you, but just saying, just you are there with that particular intention. So follow me if you want to hear about these hashtags. So you could sort of look at, and how to analyze hashtags. You've probably got a load of hashtag analytic tools. You could just have a quick look at the hashtags that you think you want to be really talking about and stick to them, so that you're not talking about so it gives you a sort of an angle for your storytelling. You can talk about so many stories, but that would give you like a filter of what not to talk about and what you could talk about.
No, that's cool.
Hashtags. And I think one of the hashtags is definitely around the Lencioni team building stages of teams, Susan Harker, Susan Wheeler, the whole basic idea of going from a stage one team where nobody's really connected to a high performing team and speeding that process up. As we know in science, it can take only a few days, but most people take months because they don't have the tricks. So one of the angles that's really obvious here, other than mental health that we've talked about and sort of mental wellness with the balance of rhythm and work and rest, is the speed. And in the business world, how important speed is. For the corporate, their probable latent need is to know how to do the team building faster.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really credible angle from an elite sports point of view, because most people don't realize that sports, and particularly elite sports, is looking at much longer timelines, because we see the pace of the match and we see the tension and the adrenaline. It feels fast, but it's kind of a weird actual slowness in the whole background and preparation and diligent, like incremental step by incremental step. It's actually a real gardener's job, actually, which then you can use to speed up, ironically, the corporate world. Anu was asking how to change that every sentence, not with, yes, that's a good point, Anu. Even though first person is quite authentic, you might want to sort of take out a few I's and formulate it with a slightly more humble British side.
Yes, maybe.
I'm wonderful. I'm great. I'm awesome. But you could also say, others have said that, you can use a couple of those effects. But where are we now in terms of, let's perhaps do a brainstorm of what are the archetypes that you want to use in social media? Because we often forget the whole thing that you're not there as you. You're actually going there as a sort of persona. Right now, the persona is called Head of User Experience at Credit Suisse. So I think what I'm going to there is the title, right? We need to be able to sort of integrate perhaps in the title something more than UX in Credit Suisse. so that you have the bridge of the two worlds within your title.
Yeah.
So, we could play in a second with YouTube titles, because they're built in with SEO analytics to know what people are searching for. So we could you could use a YouTube title to title your profile channel, your
That sounds
channel
fun.
of.
Yeah. Let's have a go at that.
But before we do that, let's do a bit of hard work of thinking of the archetypes. I have this. I'm gonna go back to my drawing board here a second.
Okay.
I'm not going to put you through the whole looking at the details, but I'm taking notes as we talk about archetypes. And archetypes are like universal patterns of behavior, nothing to do with personality, but that are organized into lots of different. And I've got this always in the back of my mind when I hear people speak. I sort of like note down what are the archetypes, and I jotted down a few of them when you were talking. One of them is the servant, who's serving people with your knowledge and wisdom. So that's one. The other one is the manager, the one that's focused on adaptation. It doesn't matter that you can't read. I'm just showing you my notes. But the manager profile, this diagram. We've had a session on this. It goes deep, and there was there was an explorer as well that was popping its head out when you were talking about going out, conquering the world, bringing back the gold medal. There's a bit of that nomadic or explorer with the underlying focus on curiosity. I'm giving you words and semantic hooks here so that we can perhaps pull a few out to put into the Jasper profiling.
Yep, that sounds good.
So do write anything that pops its head out. Yeah. There was the carer, which is an unusual one in business, focused on well-being of others, which you have to do in the elite sports world. Otherwise, you just shoot yourself in the foot. But in the corporate world, many leaders are literally struggling and clueless on how to do that. So an angle for today is mental wellness and wellness in general. You have a huge legitimacy in that, because you can't imagine a high-performing sports hockey team that's not well and still performing highly. So you have a direct credibility on that, which a lot of managers are literally throwing the hanky in. They're just going, I don't know what to do. I just can't. I have my own issues or whatever.
I mean, it's a tough space, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. And then there was the apprentice profile, like constant learning, constant curiosity, constantly humbly going, I don't know, I'm going to find out, I'm going to ask, rather than trying to have I know. You could claim but you tend to go into, I don't know, let me find out, or double check my assumptions. So there's an apprentice.
Because one of my things around coaching, but also in business and leadership, is just not. As soon as you think you know it all, it's over. I do truly believe in that. Like, you can. I was coaching the other day in hockey, and I had a 12-year-old kid that I was just doing literally 10, 15 minutes with. And he turned around and said something to me that I just went, man, I've been in coaching for 25 years and I've never thought of that. This 12-year-old. Do
you remember what it was?
Oh, I can't remember exactly. It was something really off the wall. Like, the kids just come out with things that you just go,
golden nugget that you would want to record.
Just like, I'm just you can never have that lens, because it's so pure when they're a kid. You just don't. And it was something that I took and thought about for a little while, and it was just refreshing. It's just one of those moments where you're like, and that kind of fits in that apprentice model. And I think any leader or coach, or just generally, I think as soon as you do think you know it all, you're done. You can certainly think I'm an expert, or I know this area very well, but you can always learn more.
So those are all. So do you have a few key words that we can use if I go now back into Jasper and play with the how to write something as title, your LinkedIn title? because I'm not going to go and write the whole bio with you. I think it would be a bit too long
I
for
know.
us tonight.
Yep.
But I think you got I mean, you can open Jasper on the free version and play with it yourself. But I think you've got already bits and nuggets of text there that could be, to keep it simple. Let's focus on YouTube. These are all different formulae, like spells, I call them.
This is within Jasper, yeah.
Jasper, yeah. These are all basically structured. This is video titles, so they have all the different ways. You have 80 characters for what is the video about. Okay, so I'm going to put head of user experience at Credit Suisse.
Okay.
It's probably going to give us a how-to or a listicle. One of those 16 ways to.
Yeah.
Keyword to rank for. I think we should say something to do with team work or team building. I'm not sure which of the hashtags or analytics.
Or team culture or team.
You know what? Let's do a quick
team building.
Let's do a quick Google check on this. I mean, let's just compare. What are the words that you're thinking of? Team culture.
Team culture.
So team culture. I'm going to put search term, and I'm going to go not United States. I'm going to go worldwide, 2004 to present. I'm going to zoom in as well so you can see. Let's add then team.
High performing team, maybe.
High performing team.
You could put in team building just to have the comparison.
Compare team building, as in one word, or team building in 2 words, perhaps.
Yes.
Team buildings as a search term, yeah. That gives us a better view. Let me just go smaller here so that you can see better the screen itself. And then I'll get this. So what else do we add in there? Team, the topic, teamwork.
Teamwork, yes.
Teamwork is very obvious, but teamwork is one. Now let's look at which one is the one? Oh, it's clearly team building, isn't it?
But I would imagine that encompasses when I think team building, you kind of think team building events. Whereas maybe if you flip it to building a team. Well,
teamwork is very close. It's quite high as well. And I think you're close. You're semantically more doing teamwork that's high performance, elite teamwork than team building, which, as you quite rightly say, that many people associate with those offsites.
Yeah. But I think the interesting element there is actually it's kind of like the slight, it's the change in what we're doing. So it's not that you have a team and then it's doing the team building. It's actually how it's the reverse. It's building a team culture or evolving a team culture.
It's in Switzerland, it's opposite. Look. Switzerland, compared to the global, you get more green teamwork than team building. See, in actual search terms. Not that we should take it too seriously, but it just gives us a rough idea of the semantic weighting of those words before we start using. Because I mean, ultimately, they're all talking about the same thing. You are just building. I think it's the word speed is missing in all of this. So perhaps we go back to Jasper. And we talk about fast teamwork or elite teamwork. This is not right. Teamwork would be the keyword we want to rank for. And elite and high performing coach, word coach maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take out Credit Suisse because when you look at a LinkedIn profile, you can see.
Yep.
So you don't even need that. So elite, high performing teamwork coach and head of user experience.
We'll see what comes back.
This is going to be scary. Teamwork ranking and English American output. Can we choose? No, I think the free version doesn't let us choose anything else than American. Too bad. Generate. And now we have how to be a high-performing teamwork coach. The science of high-performance teamwork, insights from a proven expert. That kind of starts to talk about why people should follow you when they see your profile pop up. Essentially what they're seeing is your picture with this and your company and your official title. So you don't need to play up too much the corporate title, because those are usually long, and that you can explain those in your descriptions of jobs below. So you can just say, okay, right now I'm this specifically in this context, and that's where you write that sort of 1 kilometer long job titles that the corporate always has, with the actual what you're doing and responsibility accountabilities. Whereas this is more about like a catchy, curiosity triggering title.
Yes, completely different approach to what I have at the moment. Hey, that does make sense.
Obviously, this is third person, so we'd have to tweak it so that you can actually read it as a profile. But the science of high performance teamwork, like let's just try, like bringing the best of elite sports coaching into the business world.
Yeah.
And generate. This is just for lazy copywriters. Yeah, the best elite sports coaching techniques to help build a winning teamwork strategy. 5 powerful elite sport coaching techniques that will help you. Yeah, of course, they have the listicles with 5 and 6 and 7 and 9s, and how elite sports coaching techniques can transform your business, teamwork tips included. Yeah, I mean, that first one there, I'm going to put into the chat. It's kind of interesting because it's actually quite to the point of what you're offering to the corporate world when you.
Actually, it depends how precise, because that can be quite open, yeah. So that actually is a doorway into, actually maybe there's quite a few things in there that would be of interest, and whether you go at that level or whether you go in something more specific around, the work rest rhythm of in business and how that's applied in sport and how that's applied in business. But the first one actually is not necessarily a mile away from what we've been talking about, to be honest.
I'll just type in another idea. I
probably wouldn't have the teamwork tips included. Or maybe you would. I don't know.
No. I mean that might be the thing that you post when you update your profile, and you just put a little comment in LinkedIn saying, "But from now on, follow me for this." That's like the text body of your update post. Hey everybody, I've changed my profile and this is now what I do. But the top one here could be something closer to your title, like bring in, like slogan, Steve, bring in the best of elite sports coaching into corporate teamwork.
Both of those are more along the lines.
Slogan-y.
Yeah, agreed.
I've got a thumbs up from Anna, thank you. So let's zoom out a second, because now we're just playing around with AI and seeing what we get. Which so far, I don't know. How do you think? Is it?
I think it's.
What's your?
It's the sort of thing where, especially for someone like myself, where being a self-promoter is not necessarily one of my super strengths. This actually, you can throw in a couple of sentences and then it spins it, and then you're like, okay, that sounds great.
Maybe I could say that.
I mean, that's kind of close to what I'm talking about. It's just, doing it in a much punchier, more direct way. So, yeah, I think I even when prior to this, you showed me a little bit of Jasper, I was like, I was very impressed actually. So
I think, but just testing the Tony Robbins version. I just clicked
Yeah.
on Tony Robbins for you here. Look. What I like about Tony Robbins' tone of voice is that he's obviously very bold and confident about, self-promotion and being trusting the power of yourself, and how the best coaches bring out the best in teams. Business lessons from elite sports coaches. Why teamwork is the secret ingredient to success in business. Insight from top coaches. So this is not necessarily what you'd write, but this is kind of maybe to boost your self-confidence about what you're doing.
Yeah. No, agreed.
I mean, this one is quite interesting.
Yeah.
How to create a winning team culture in your business.
Yeah, that's
Follow me to learn to get tips and practical advice or stories about how to create a winning team culture, because winning is obviously what a lot of people in business are looking for.
yep.
I'll throw that into the chat as well. There we go. So you have
And that's
a few.
also an element. Again, it's another aspect which, I'm fortunate to be part of actually, winning at the top of the game. So, and there is, you can talk about operating at the high level, but then being able to win at the highest level is another step up. And so, that's not
exactly.
bad.
Okay, so let's zoom out from playing with Tony Robbins
Yes.
and sort of get some crystallization and synthesis of all this going. Now, creative speaking, because I think we haven't still quite tapped into the enthusiasm of using LinkedIn, and I, as a coach to you, because I care about your well-being, Steve, it needs to be fun. You need to get into the LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is just a mirror to who you are. So if it's something that feels heavy, it's just going to add to your to-do list of many other obligations and chores. So how might we make this flow inducing for you?
Oh.
Like let's guide this into a very practical level.
Give me some guidance.
Format. Like you can okay, the technology. You've been using a lot of tech for your lab, so you know that you can get things like really easy text transcription, audio to text. You know that it's quite easy to do video conversational style posting. Like, for example, Simon Sinek does that a lot. He's literally just talking to the camera and having a text underneath with the transcription, flip charts. Others like to really polish, like write it and rewrite it. Others I've seen are really good at sketching, hand sketching, like, that kind of thing. And actually, I've seen beautiful hand doodles in internet from art of hosting people who do a lot of graphic harvesting. I've seen people who love cameras take pictures and show great little snapshots. Others like to just show other people's content, like, forward and sharing with a comment, like enjoying the whole, I'm sharing forward with my own spin on it. Like, for example, bringer of good news, you could be sharing all the great teamwork examples and analyze with your hockey hat why it's great. Not just say it's great, but I trust if I see you share something about teamwork with a comment, I'm going to read your comment because I know that your comment is on the spot. Whereas if I have some random person posting, I don't necessarily think that their comment is of much value if I don't know their expertise in team building. So it gives you an extra, so you could also create that legitimacy by reposting. So there's plenty of things. The question is more about what tickles your fancy. What do you want to do? What's fun? What's enjoy? Because you don't have to sit there and write necessarily. You could speak to the camera, type to audio transcribe, repost. There's plenty of things you can do. What would create flow?
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it necessarily in that context. So, you could have some fun in that space. I think actually just I think the space of talking and then getting it annotated and then going from there could be interesting. The use of imagery, I think, is quite powerful, and video is getting into the fringe of my comfort zone, probably. But that could be something that I'd probably try and progress to, maybe, as I do more potentially in this area.
Video is uncomfortable because of the spontaneity, or because of the fact you don't like looking at yourself on screen?
Mm, I've got better at looking myself on screen, but I think it's more. Yeah, it could be that it's just the spontaneity. I think it's probably a little bit in that. But I also think that the more I always think with videos, the more you post or post on your space in your social media, the faster it filters down. So if you post something that's a bit of a something that is not necessarily great, or you think you can do, but I mean, if you're regularly posting, it doesn't really matter. Hey, so I don't know. It's my perception. I mean, social media is something that I kind of follow. So you mentioned at the beginning, yeah, I'm fairly active on. I like reading and following things that are of interest and trying to keep up to date and liking and things like that. But when it comes to actually myself posting and putting my media out there and things like that, that's not something that I've really embarked to date.
If I look at the low hanging fruit, Steve, what's actually happening and what you're already comfortable doing, there's a very obvious thing, which is that you have, for example, those, let's say Facebook, what you shared to me with the videos earlier, the videos of
Yeah,
the Olympics, there were Facebook videos that you can download and rip off Facebook and upload yourself as a direct native video in LinkedIn. You can use, I can share an app that's
mm.
really cool for that. But it's called Downy. I use it all the time to be able to create.
Yeah,
Actually, I download my own videos and take snippets from it like that. So you
okay,
could use, for example, Downy and take any of the content that's in public media editorial domain, like press, basically,
yeah,
and use that as either still shots or videos without sound,
yeah,
and repost them. Obviously, you've got to be careful of copyrights, but most of the time, if it's editorial, you don't have any issue whatsoever. If you're
okay,
taking a snippet of it and it's editorial, you might want to check that if you're unsure. But it's
yeah,
essentially
yeah,
just a content piece that you can share with your commentary. And for example, let's say you were talking about India. You remember the story where you were in the hotel and there was all that drama. Now that story with a editorial snippet of the actual public event and perhaps a snapshot of your photo of the hotel lobby, and then the narrative with it would make it really compelling because you get the
mm.
tangibility of the visual from your picture and the editorial, and then your storytelling does the rest. And then you don't have to be talking head on camera and say, "Hello, I'm Steve
Yeah,
telling you a
yeah,
story." You can basically craft that message and have a few revs,
mm.
even show it to somebody at first if you want to get a bit of feedback, um, and sort of do it experimentally like that.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I think I think I need to spend a bit of time in that creative space, even just starting to talk about the different ways of actually generating all those things is something that I can. That's a takeaway for me, I think.
Yeah, in a way, you could think about it as a um, navigator's journal. You're like sailing around the world on a ship in the 16th
Mm.
century, and you're writing a log, or you're
Hmm.
writing an anthropological account of the tribes that you meet. There's that researcher explorer in you that is very, very present and has been since we've met in university. That like anthropologist actually is not very visible in the profile right now because you're leading other people doing that type of work.
Mm.
But in a sense, it's still part of your persona,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe
that's
that's where the
quite nice.
fun is.
Yeah, that's quite cool. Yeah, I quite
Maybe
like that idea actually.
maybe we start the sort of anthropologist united kind of movement of harvesting interesting insights and stuff.
Mm.
But I'd be personally now if I'm talking now blue about what I would
Mm.
like to read from you, I would really like to read this behind the scenes stories because it makes me feel there's a little bit of that thrill of because I can read up on the press. I know that the team did a last minute turnaround and all that from the press.
Mm.
But what I can't get from the press is the inside view of what was the behind the scenes.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
also,
that's perfect storytelling. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and especially like I can frame that in a way. I think of so if I think back across the journey, then you can start pulling out different aspects of that. Yeah, yeah, that kind of works.
So in a way, one step into that would be to sort of really ask yourself, just like you're running a team and you're trying to get their optimum flow of rest and work, is to think about your rhythm
Mm.
of rest and work with LinkedIn, so that you don't try and go like crazy with posting all the time too much, but that you would actually take a conscious step towards planning your rhythm of posting
Yeah.
without going too much into like, I'm a social media calendar for myself, but really just having like, because you've got plenty already now. If I were to sit down and interview you on all the things that hockey, elite sports brings to the corporate world, you could probably easily come up with a bullet point of 10 different topics, 10
Hmm.
stories even of real once upon a time this happened that you can tell in 200 words. Those are probably right there at the top of your mind. So what you could do for flow is take one of those writing batches and say, okay, I'm going to go and sit on top of that mountain, take the cable car, isolate, take a good coffee, and write 5 of them. And then I just take Canva, and I take the calendar in Canva and I post it and I put it on a schedule, and I post the first one on Monday the 11th and the second one on Monday the 18th.
Yeah.
And you choose to post it at a particular time, and you batch it so that you can do when you're in the plane, for example, since you're traveling a lot, that might be the ritual that you go, okay, I'm gonna just reflect, but it's like public journaling. So Otto Schama does this beautifully when he comes back from events and he posts while he's traveling. He takes his flight and he's writing during the flight, and then when he arrives, it's posted. So you could take that approach of batching so that you don't feel that it's such a big thing that you have to keep thinking about,
Yeah.
but that you can do once in a few moments, and take an automated posting tool like Canva that's really easy, and then press play and then forget about it and just go on back onto your usual LinkedIn like, share, like.
Yeah.
And literally you will boost your.
Yeah, I quite like that idea actually, and that's doable as well.
Mm.
Okay.
So
Yes.
so it's kind of like we've got back to now the process, just to sort of revisit where we are on the process. Here we go. Um, oh, I'm zooming around. Look at that. Here. So we've now kind of tested Jasper, done,
Hmm.
past the groan zone. We've done a little bit of writing. We didn't go all the way. We could probably spend a bit more time doing bullets and listing and writing, but I think that's also part of your own process of
I agree.
being with yourself and thinking what is right for me.
Yep.
So we've converged down on that. One of the things that came out is the idea of your own rhythm,
Hmm.
the idea of your own flow, oxygen
Yep.
mask on yourself before the other person. If your team needs flow, you need flow. And the idea of directionality of the content being really focused on corporate. That even though you're bridging both ways, it's clearly more about bringing the elite into the corporate, which gives you a particular angle, and the idea of team work, with a couple of extra hashtags that you can really sort of keep as a filter to yourself when you're thinking about all the million stories you have. You would have them in the top of your mind going, okay, scroll through the stories, which one is the hashtag,
Yep.
so that you can easily choose the angle of, because otherwise it's difficult to write and you get writer's block. So that's what I harvested as a sort of general takeaways. Maybe we could do from your side like a synthesis of what are you getting out from this? What has shifted in your thinking about the LinkedIn?
Um, I think probably some of the methods and techniques in terms of how to frame some of these things. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It's not always. It doesn't have to be that self promotion. It can be. Yeah, more about storytelling and examples, and yeah, that sort of. I think that's one part of it. I think also the creative side. So, it doesn't necessarily just have to be post. Like there's quite a few different things that I can look into and explore into that. Definitely the batching. When we do talk about the writing side, that's something that makes sense. And also yeah, the anthropologist aspect, that journaling of what I've been through is actually quite a nice process on self-reflection as well. And I'm pretty sure if I went back into that headspace, there'd be more takeaways. And then probably the last thing is, or the last two things is, utilizing the people that are close to me and my team in terms of, I think it's a really interesting exercise hearing what they think came from business and which came from sport in the process that we've been through together. I think that's quite a good little activity that would be fun to do as well. To that, it's kind of pulling out the things that I might think are obvious but aren't necessarily obvious. So I think Anu had something in the conversation in the chat about that. So yeah, that's quite a good takeaway for me as well.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you. So probably can't read that from here, but I just jotted them down here, and I'll send you a screenshot of this afterwards so that helps you structure as well you're thinking. But I'm really looking forward to reading your posts. It's because I know some of the stories, and I know how beautifully rich they can be. So I'm looking forward to seeing them and sharing them onwards in my network, because if the insight is actionable enough and the story is good, I'll start sharing, of course. I'm not going to share it. So quality first, yes. And as an anthropologist, I'm always curious also about what are you gleaning, what are you learning from one field and another. That's always I also would like to do more of that. So I'm going to get inspired from your posts, no doubt, as well.
Yeah. Give me some time, but I'm on
it. So when are you going to start? What is your schedule for this?
I think I'd quite like to try and get something over. Where are we in October? I think I'd like to try and move it forward in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. I think if I'm being true to myself, if I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to get this done by the weekend, I'm not. I just know what I've got on. But actually, I think but giving myself a deadline, I think, is also quite key, because otherwise I'm going to sit on it. So I think, maybe in 4 to 6 weeks, I will have done a bit of self-reflection, thinking about what are some of those key aspects, and then looking about how I shape that into my profile. A little bit of the Tony Robbins / Optimus Prime, I think, could be quite interesting. But yeah, I'm definitely going to spend some time having a look at Jasper as well, and cultivating some of the terms and seeing what comes out of that, because I think that'd be very helpful for me.
And have you noticed what you just did? You're being really specific about your time, like master of time, because you can't do what you're doing across the two fields without really looking at cyclical time, rhythm, and managing time ahead. Like when you talk about time commitment, most people are just going like, I think I'll give it a start soon, maybe Monday, because but you're going like, okay, realistically 4 to 6 weeks. So that's one of your superpowers, is the ability to think specifically and tangibly about time, not just for yourself, but on behalf of a team. And that's clearly going to be one of the topics in your list of many things is mastering time. So I'm going to stop the stream and say thank you for those who've diligently, particularly Anu, who's been here and watching and helping with her comments. There will be a replay of this in YouTube, so in the usual replay. So you can also re-watch this yourself and grab things. If you want to refresh your mind when you're actually doing this, you can just re-watch this in the background, actually.
Yeah,
that's why it's a kind of harvest. And those of you who are watching this as a replay, don't forget to subscribe so that you tell us that we're actually doing something that's valuable. If it's not valuable, then just hit us like to get a little bit of encouragement. And Steve, I invite you to stay onwards so that we can debrief. And to the rest of you, thank you very much, and all good night. And we'll be streaming next time.
I've also got to say thank you, Esther. I've just got to say, put that in. Thank you as always for being there and for your coaching mastery in so many different topics. And what you guys, what you do with Green Elephant is one of those untouched gems that you find in the world. And I can only speak incredibly highly of the work that you guys do. So from me, thank you very much. It's much appreciated.
Now you're very welcome. And by the way, it's see, I always struggle and also getting feedback. I just jump into like, okay, thank you. There's a comment in the chat, by the way, from Miklos Barton. Please share the link later. I will. And in fact, what you could do, Steve, is use this link when I've done the editing. You could actually post that in your LinkedIn as a kickoff of your new profile, and then people will see that link, and if they want to be watching it for themselves. And
yeah, good idea. Excellent.
so, good night, all. And next Tuesday evening, we'll be streaming with a therapist talking about internal conversations and things that can help to create mental wellness with internal conversations. So, next Tuesday evening.